The anger over the residential school legacy and the sorrow over the discovery of that common grave in Kamloops, BC, has spurred a group of Alberta lawyers to launch an attempt to get the International Criminal Court, the ICC, based in The Hague, to launch an official investigation of Canada's residential school system. Jonathan Denis is a former Alberta Justice Minister, and he's part of the group making representations to the International Court. Mr. Denis, thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
What is it exactly that you want the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to investigate?
So the ICC has jurisdiction to investigate crimes which may have taken place back in 2002, but the ongoing issues may make this eligible for this independent investigation. We are simply asking that there be an independent and an impartial investigation into what specifically has happened here. And in a situation like this, the most independent and impartial investigation is from an international body, and that's what the ICC is designed to do.
Okay, now you mentioned that the ICC, by its, I think it's called the Rome Treaty, only investigates things going back to 2002. With this residential system, it doesn't exist anymore, and the last residential school closed in 1996. Does that mean the ICC wouldn't have jurisdiction over this? That's not a possibility.
You're quite correct that this residential school closed in 1978. That being said, okay, the ongoing issues and the issue of discoverability didn't happen until after 2002. So our argument is that the ICC actually does have jurisdiction and a mandate to investigate this. What would have to happen? They have to first conduct a preliminary investigation, and the Office of the Prosecutor would then determine if there is sufficient evidence of crimes of sufficient gravity falling within their jurisdiction. I'll be honest, if this isn't it, I don't know what is.
Okay, well, what exactly would you have them looking into? Because obviously now Indigenous communities are asking for investigation, forensic searches, possible burial grounds. You want the whole widest issue of all behavior and possible criminal behavior investigated? Absolutely.
Specifically, what happened in the broadest sense and what led up to it. The actors who were involved, and a broader question is the whole issue of reconciliation. I've had many people say to me, "Can we even start on the path to reconciliation when we don't actually have the facts and we actually haven't determined what happened?" And the ICC is the ultimate venue of impartiality and independence. It's also important not just that justice be done, but justice be seen to be done. The public confidence in the system is very important in a case like this.
What about, and you've watched all week, and all week long we've heard federal ministers and them alluding to Indigenous community groups, saying that this has to be driven by Indigenous community groups. And their suggestion is that something like the ICC is coming in over everyone's heads. You've got an international, high-powered instance looking at this whole issue. And a lot of what we're hearing from federal leaders is that this has got to be something that has to be grassroots, originated, determined, decided on by Indigenous communities.
Well, I absolutely agree that Indigenous communities have to be involved. And we have 29 people who signed on to this letter, some of who do have Indigenous background. The reality is if we're going to move forward as a nation with a full partnership for our Indigenous communities, we've got to get to the bottom of this, find out specifically what happened, and do our best on that particular path.
The Prime Minister today alluded or suggested, or for the first time at least invoked, the idea of a court case against the Catholic Church, and one would have to determine what instances of the Catholic Church, whether it would be the Vatican or other components, to try and access documents which they haven't provided. Would the ICC target that as well? Would that be part of the purview of what you'd like the ICC to look into?
And this again shows why the ICC's involvement here is necessary, because you're dealing with the Vatican City, which is an independent state. You're dealing with some international documents. The best way to do this is through the international process. You're dealing with many, many different actors here. I agree with you that if those documents are still available, they absolutely should be produced. But at the same time, we shouldn't prejudge what's gone on. We need to have an investigation, determine the facts, and then go from that point.
If the ICC were not to decide to look into this, what other instances are there? Because we've heard from the UN this week on two different occasions, but this has been things like the Human Rights Commission and the UN General Assembly. What are there other entities that might be something you're thinking of?
The Prime Minister could actually call a public inquiry. The question that I often ask is, what does the average person think about the judicial system? and how independent it is. The independence of this process is paramount, and I still remain that the ICC avenue is going to be the best optically, so that people have confidence in the process, having fully disinterested international observation and oversight of this whole process. So the Prime Minister could call a public inquiry, but I still maintain that the ICC avenue is the best way to go.
Okay, a last question on a very narrow issue, and that is that Marie Sinclair, the former head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, told the Parliamentary Committee yesterday that on the very narrow issue just of forensic searches, digging and looking and investigating potential burial sites, he doesn't want the federal government involved in that. He says that should also be done by an independent entity responsible maybe to a parliamentary committee. He says the federal government is party to this and shouldn't be investigating it. What's your take on that?
I would agree with that, actually. The fact that even though there's different actors in the federal government or in other related areas that are no longer there, the perception, again, of independence and impartiality is key here. And I would add, this also is not a partisan issue. This is an issue for all Canadians, left, right, center.
Any idea when you might have any response from the ICC?
We just submitted it this week. There's an old adage, unfortunately, that the wheels of justice turn slowly, but I think that this is something that should be expedited because it is potentially something really horrific in this country. You need to get to the bottom of this so we can move together and heal as a nation.
Okay, Mr. Denis, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you and good day.